Okay, so first things first, we're going to go over the materials. So, RX Prep, this is probably the number one resource as far as studying for NAPLEX, MPJE, and the California law exam. This is an online testing resource. There's videos and quiz banks that you can use to study. It offers an option to buy state-specific flashcards, which I would highly recommend because these flashcards are the answers to the questions that you get in the back of the course manual that they send you in the mail after you purchase a subscription. And the biggest thing about RX Prep, the MPJE courses they sell, is that they have a mock MPJE examination that you can take, and this resembles the real exam. It looks exactly like how it's going to look on test day, and the questions are worded very similar to the verbiage that they like to use on the actual examination. This is very helpful. Definitely about 3 to 4 weeks out from your exam date to kind of gauge where you are as far as study wise. And it breaks down the different areas as far as what you need to study to make sure that you're prepared. And the great thing about that is they go directly according to the MPJE competency statements that NAB puts out for the exam. Now, this is a subscription-based website. There's a 3-month access, which costs about $199, and then the 6-month access, which is about $249. And depending on how long you plan to study for, I would definitely recommend that you get the 6-month option, just to make sure, life happens. You might need to reschedule the exam, and you want to make sure that you have access. And this is going to make sure you have adequate time to review and prepare. The next resource is pharmacyexam.com. This is an online resource as well. It offers federal and state law quiz banks to enhance your review process. These questions are good because they're not worded in the typical manner that you see on other websites, and definitely pushes you to recall the information that you studied from other resources. When you get this, it's 1 year access, so you have it all year long, and each quiz bank normally has over 150 questions. The federal law portion is split into 3 different quiz banks, and each of those has 150 plus questions, and I highly recommend that you get that. The state law normally has 1 quiz bank. The federal law quiz banks are $60 a piece, but they offer discounts based on how many quiz banks you purchase, and state quiz banks are around $120. So with the $60 federal quiz bank purchase plus your state quiz bank purchase, you're probably looking at a little bit of a discount when it comes time to check out. This is definitely a very good resource that you should have in your arsenal. Now, this is my favorite resource to use as far as going over state law information. It's called TLDR. This is also an online based resource that you can purchase. Basically, when you pay your money and select the state, they're going to send you a PDF document, and you're going to use that document to go over all of the state law information as it pertains to the competency statements put out by NABP for studying for the MPJE examination. It outlines all the important state law information that's more than likely to be tested on the exam. It costs $75. And let me reiterate, this is my go-to state law resource. It has everything mapped out in a question and answer format in a chart. It's easy to read. It's about 22 pages. And once you're able to master all that information, you are more than prepared for the state law portion of your MPJ examination. From this point, it's definitely going to come down to how many quiz banks you're able to go over and the amount of time that you have set before your examination. But as we go through a little bit more of these resources, you're going to see how well you're going to be prepared when it comes to test time. The next resource I personally call the Purple Book, but it is formerly called the Federal Pharmacy Law 9th edition by Barry Reese and Gary D. Hall. This is probably the best federal law review for questions on federal topics that are not covered in other resources. They really take their time to nitpick on federal law and take out little topics that you might not necessarily see as far as RX Prep and a couple other resources that are out there on the market. These are small nitpick topics that I would say will be higher level questions that you will see on the MPJ examination that are worth more points as opposed to some of the simpler questions on the exam. You can buy this on Amazon for about 40 to 50 bucks. And the great thing about this book is there are 300 plus federal law practice questions in this. And they take their time to also on each chapter break down specific parts of the law as they pertain to more than likely what you're going to see on the examination. So the next resource I would like to talk about is Pharmacy Law Q&A Prep. This is another great resource that was made by Pharmacy Testing Solutions. This is a manual that you can purchase off Amazon for about 60 bucks. This book is all practice questions. And this is great because you're going to use this book along with the other questions from the quiz banks that you might have a little bit of trouble on to quiz yourself at the end of each week to make sure that your study is lining up to where you should be as you're getting closer to your exam date. You're going to use this material to make sure you're hitting all the topics and making sure that anything that you don't understand, you're going back over, and that way the next set of questions you go through, you're able to get those questions right. And each time you go through, you're going to get better and better at the information. And the amount of the things that you are having trouble with is going to decrease each time. When you go to purchase this book, you're going to buy the book that corresponds to your state. Each book contains 100 federal law questions and 270 state law questions. And we already discussed the price. The next resource is called Quizlet. This is a free online flashcard resource. There are many reliable flashcards that have been created by other pharmacists and pharmacy students to aid in your study. And I will use this to study daily. Now, along with the resources that other pharmacists and pharmacy students have made, I would use this to basically single out questions or topics that you were having issues on, compile them into a flashcard set, and then that way when you're reviewing, as we'll talk about a little bit later on the study schedule, you are taking more time to go over things that you're having difficulty over, and then when it goes back to things that you already know, that information is going to be reinforced, and later on when it gets to the actual diagnostic testing phase, you're going to see how doing that review with the flashcards is really going to pay off. One of the best things that you can probably do to prepare for the exam is taking time to draft up an email and calling NABP, calling and emailing RX Prep, and calling and emailing your state board of pharmacy. We highly recommend this because these are the authority when it comes to the MPJ examination. These are the people that are in the know, that know exactly what is coming out down the pipeline, what topics you're more than likely going to see federally, and also as what pertains to your specific state. And also, too, if you're having difficulty with any specific federal or state law, since they are the authority, they'll be able to tell you exactly what resources to use to find that information and also what exactly the law is saying as far as the verbiage is concerned. This definitely helped me out during my study. They were able to give me some good tips and advice. When you call RX Prep or email RX Prep, they actually take the time to go through your course progress and tell you which sections that you're having trouble on, and also what specific sections you need to study in general, because they'll be able to kind of give you a hint towards more than likely what you're going to see on the actual examination. Now, this pretty much is the bread and butter of the entire course right here. This is your study schedule. We've already talked about the materials. If you use these materials and go over the practice questions in the back and are able to commit those to memory, you're going to be more than prepared for the MPJ examination. It's that simple. This is the 7-day routine. Basically, what I did was I took each resource, counted up the total number of practice questions within each of them, and spread it out over the course of 7 days. That way I'm able to tackle all the material that I listed before and go over everything in a 7-day time frame. That way, after the end of the first week, I've already put eyes on all the information, and now from this point until it's time for exam day, everything is a review. Now, if you look over to the left part, you see where we're talking about the federal RX exam. When you purchase the federal quiz banks from pharmacyexam.com, each test bank contains 5 different sections, and each section has 30 questions. So 30 times 5 is 150. Now that's one quiz bank. Now, since there's 3 of those, I went and counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the first one, 6 through 10 for the second, and then 10 through 15 for the third. And if you look at the exam schedule, you see how it says Federal RX exam sets 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Those correspond to the numbers that I gave them for each different test set. Now, going a little bit further towards the bottom, on the left-hand side, at the end of each week, as we talked about earlier, you're going to take a subset of 92 questions from Pharmacy Law Q&A Prep, the book that I told you to purchase a couple slides ago. This is going to give you a set of questions that you've never seen before, and based on your preparation throughout the week, it's going to be able to give you a gauge on where exactly that you're at, because these questions are pretty broad and cover a multitude of topics that they set for the MPJE. Each week you should be able to get better and better the more that you study. But I would definitely say by the end of the second week during your review, you need to be shooting for scores of a 75 and higher. Studying all this information over the course of the week can be a little difficult. That's why I also included a 2-week study schedule. Ideally, you want to go through all the materials and questions that are listed in this course over a 2-week span. Mainly because the majority of your time studying needs to be going over practice exam questions. This is week 1. Basically, the 7-day study schedule cut in half. Again, week 1. Week 2, the second half. Going through all this information is going to lead to your diagnostic testing, which we already talked about a little bit earlier with going over the subset of 92 questions from the Pharmacy Law Q&A Prep manual.